Hello there, Green Party of California. You didn't really think you'd go an entire General Assembly without having to look at my face, did you? So I was signed up to do the presentation on talent scouting, and I ended up being drafted to the East Coast to attend the Massachusetts and Maine assemblies. I miss you. I wish these hadn't been scheduled on the same weekend. I totally would have been there. And I hope it's going really well. So given that time travel and teleportation and cloning are things that haven't been invented yet, I figured the next best thing is to actually just go ahead and record a video so that you can all have a look at what I prepared for you in terms of talent scouting. We're going to be talking today about a little bit more than just the basics around talent scouting. It's a bit about the how and the why and kind of what's in it for you, and about just kind of the culture of what kind of a Green Party do we actually want to have to develop, how we look after each other, that sort of thing. You'll see. So here we go. You should have my opening slide in front of you by the time I've edited this video. You'll see that right there. So we're looking at the building blocks of a healthy organization. And I want to start by explaining to you basically why every single green activist, so every single one of you watching this video right now, and the ones who've stepped outside for a cigarette, need to be prioritizing talent scouting. And the basic reason for that is that without the volunteers, there is no Green Party. We have maybe one full-time and one part-time employee at national level, and everybody else is a volunteer worker. I don't think there's a single paid anything in the state party. So, we're all giving our time and our money and everything in order to be here. And without us, nothing gets done. So I feel like given that, we haven't really as an organization been treating ourselves and each other with the kind of care that we need. And I want to address that. And hopefully we can get a little better and a little more conscious and value ourselves a little more. Our strength as a party comes down to the amount of people we have, the amount of energy and enthusiasm and time and work that each of us brings to the table. We are as strong as our members. There is a certain amount of synergy that 1 + 1 sometimes doesn't equal 2, but usually it's basically down to if I'm putting in 3 hours and you're putting in 4 hours and whatever, then 7 hours is getting done. And that's what we've got to work with. So my theory is that if we build what I'm calling a culture of nurturance, we'll come to what that means, an activist development, that is the most effective way that we can grow and strengthen the Green Party and turn it into the kind of organization where we are rewarded for bringing our best, where we feel better when we're delivering more, where it's not just a burden to show up and to do work. And I think we really can be that. So let's look at what a culture of nurturance is. It's basically, nurturance is a word that I recently found out is only a word in British English. It's just the noun version of nurturing. It's not that difficult to parse it together. But it's about a culture where people are cultivated, where they're supported, where people can, say if they're struggling. That's what it means to me. The official definition, which you can see on the screen right now, is it's about nourishment and care given to someone, and just the ability to provide that. So paying attention here in building a culture of nurturance to how we actually develop that and how we look after each other, how we look after ourselves, how we support our structures. And talent scouting is a big part of that. Currently, this is how we talent scout. We basically, because we socialize very closely with each other, which is good, and we're all friends and we're kind of a family, I think. I certainly feel that way about many of you. I hope that you feel that way about each other. We tend to draft from within our own ranks. So that is to say, someone steps up to a county leadership role, and then they get pulled onto state committees, then they get pulled into state leadership, then they get pulled back onto county leadership, and it just goes round and round and round, and we take on more and more and more, and then we fall apart. As you can see in this next slide, we're looking at, there's all these different things we have on our plates. And it's an overcommitment epidemic. It really is. It's a question of, submission deadlines and having arguments and debates and looking after each other, which we need to do more of, not less, but we only do it as emergency management at this point, which ends up, stressing us out and burning us out. We need to do it before it becomes an emergency. We really need to step up for the people we do have. And there's just all these other things, and it's just a lot to have on your plate. So just acknowledging that, and that basically we're a bunch of, super powered badasses here, I dare say. We work really hard. We don't do it for personal gain. We're the kind of people who we look at the world and we go, you know what? Something is wrong. Something needs to get done. Someone needs to do something about it. And that someone needs to be me. And that's what we are. If you look around the room you're in right now, and I wish I were in there with you, you'll see all these faces of people who, just like you, have decided, you know what, I'm going to give my time and my energy and my resources to really just show up for the world. And the result of that is, we burn out, we take on too much, we don't know our own limits, we don't know our own boundaries. When we get too much, we pass it off onto someone else. They're already overcommitted as well. So we need more people taking on more. And this does get less mundane, I promise, but for right now, I really want to hammer this point home. What happens when you overcommit? Is it good for the organization? Does it mean that you are producing more? No, it does not. It means you're stressed. It means you're burnt out. It means you can't deliver on the things people are asking of you, so that hurts the organization. It leads to resentment between different activists and organizers who aren't maybe not seeing eye to eye, and not really having the opportunity to look through it. So let's revisit that circular talent scouting slide here. So there it is. And you can see how, we're all just adding more and more and more to our plate, to the point where one of us burns out, and then that person steps off, and then all the people have to pick up more and more from them, and then, the next person goes, and the next person goes, and it's like a domino line, and it ends up having the risk of leaving our organization completely ineffective or on the hands of just a couple really stressed, really tired, really uninspired organizers. That's not who the Green Party is supposed to be. We can and do really fun, exciting projects. I think most people, when they first come to the Green Party, they're energized, they're enthused, they're hopeful, and they want to make a difference. So, to continue the kind of mundane thinking, here is a very rudimentary difference that we can do, which would make the talent scouting much healthier. It's basically bring new people in, bring them in at county level, bring them in at state level, get them active. We need to prioritize this. So, as I said, we hopefully can all agree this would be a much healthier model. The principle behind this one is one that we need to collectively reaffirm our commitment to. So yes, this seems mundane so far. We will get to how we can do this. But I'm so far just wanting to make sure that it's in the top of everyone's minds that all of our lives as green activists will be better the more each and every one of us, and I do mean you, specifically you, if you commit to finding people who you can take on as talent scouts, or rather as you as the talent scout, with them as new activists, it will help the organization and it will make your life as an activist tangibly better. A lot of the shift that's needed is simply within the mindset of existing activists. So now let's move on to strategies that'll help us with this process. So, where are the new people? They're all over the place. They could be registered Greens who haven't yet gotten active. They could be people who attend the meetings, haven't been given any work. The person who just kind of shows up and sits there. Could be someone who approached a table, gave your contact details, then left, never heard from them again. It could be friends, comrades from local campaigns, pressure groups who are kind of green leaning but haven't really gotten involved with us. Sometimes colleges, high schools allow us to present to potential volunteers. We up in Yolo County recently had a guy reach out who was just looking for volunteer work. It turns out that the Green Party of Yolo County is on the UC Davis database for an elective that requires a certain amount of community service. So we got him to build us a website interface. And he was not someone who I would say was actually interested in being active with the Green Party, but he did do quite a bit of work for us. Most of the people who would approach us there through their local high school, etc., from a presentation would be more likely to be someone who would actually stick around potentially. So it just depends on the person. Think about, for a starting point, you know, who in your area might have reached out to you. How accessible are you if someone is trying to reach the Green Party? How easy is it for Greens near you to find a way to help the party if they want to do so? Just make yourself as accessible as possible. Prioritize that talent scouting. That's half the battle right there, and that part is relatively easy. So now let's think about, you know, what are we looking for in a new person? Do we want to recruit just about anyone who shows up? Not necessarily. We don't want to be elitist, but I would say that the things to look for amount to kind of 4 different areas. If you see on this slide, we've got motivation and commitment, time and energy, trust and confidence, and that's one that has to be built, and skills and interests. And how you relate to each of these areas is a little different. If a person shows up that's got maybe 3 of the 4, that's okay, provided that the one that they're missing isn't motivation. Because if they're unmotivated, they're not going to do anything for you. You'll be breaking your head against a brick wall the whole time. It's just not worth it. The other ones, you might be able to work with them if they've got like 15 minutes a week. There's still something useful they could do. If they don't have much confidence yet, you can work on helping build their confidence. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So looking at how to bring out the best in people, we're back to those 4 areas. You've got promoting skills and interests. So here you're going to pick roles, pick tasks which suit an individual's skills and interests. So that builds on ownership, on motivation, specialization. And that way you can really benefit from the things that they're good at, and they can benefit from knowing that they're good at it and that they're bringing work to us that is something that they alone can deliver. That feels really good. It's the kind of thing that makes people feel like, okay, well, I'm doing what I should be doing here. And there's a sense of, it's a very rewarding experience to go through that. We want this to be a rewarding experience for them. That way they'll stick around. Developing trust and confidence. So this is something, some people come in with it with confidence in leaps and bounds. Trust always starts from 0. So you want to kind of work to develop a connection with your new activist. You can start them with a small task, which feels manageable. And then that's a common thing that we would use in trade unions in particular, to get people feeling like, well, I can make a difference here. I can actually have some impact. Here's something that I did that I can point to, and it's had this result. And now, you know, my work has been valued and appreciated and effective. And that's a pretty straightforward one. I'll give you a couple ideas of what people can do as a kind of initial task while you're just starting them out to kind of check in, see whether they'll show up. And part of developing trust is actually about gauging their motivation, gauging their commitment, and then trusting that they will be able to follow through on it. So accommodating time and energy. This is a big one for all of us. When someone tells you how much time they have available, you got to believe them, because if they tell you they've got 3 hours a week and then you give them a task that would really take like 6, it ain't going to get done. They're going to feel bad. You're going to feel bad. It's going to be unpleasant for everybody involved. And so that's another way that we burn people out. Also, sometimes people say that they have more time than they actually end up having. And that can be a downward spiral. We'll come to that again later. As for motivation and commitment, that comes in at a certain level. We don't have a lot of control over this if they start with no motivation. We can't motivate the unmotivated out the starting gate. We want our new people to really be motivated, because that's where they bring the oxygen into the organization. So yeah, we can't motivate someone who's unmotivated unless they started out motivated, in which case we can maybe help them find their light again. We don't want to demotivate anyone who is already motivated. And that we can do, and that we have to watch for, because we don't want to be doing that. So let's look at trust a little more, because this is a really valuable thing in terms of how we interact with each other. Basically, an organization that has less trust between the members of that organization ends up with more bureaucracy, more fighting, more squabbles, more of the bad stuff. Trust can kind of overcome a lot of this to the extent that we're able to trust each other. It's not always going to be possible, but it helps to know what trust is, because it's something that humans talk about a lot, but most of us don't really pay attention to what it means when we tell someone we trust them. What is it that they're doing that's earned that trust? And I think this is someone everyone should know. Brene Brown, something everyone should know, I'm sorry. Brene Brown put together this great model about trust, and it's an acronym. It's called BRAVING. So it comes down to setting boundaries. So that means I know what my boundaries are. I am willing to say what my boundaries are, and then I count on you to respect where my boundaries are set. And I can count on you as well to tell me where your boundaries are, so that I don't accidentally cross them and then you get resentful towards me and I don't know what I've done wrong. So that's about clear communication of where are the boundaries and where do we set them. Reliability is just follow through. Do what you're going to say, what you say you're going to do. That's pretty basic. You can see on the slide, say what you mean what you say, follow through on what you said you were going to do. This slide, by the way, I basically took it straight out of one of her pieces of literature. It's good stuff. She has a book called Braving the Wilderness, which is about belonging. It's worth checking out. So let's keep going. Accountability, that's about owning your mistakes. When you mess up, own up to it. People will have a lot more respect for you. It hurts for a little bit. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's worth it. In the long run, it makes things a lot better. And most people, especially Greens, are generally going to be pretty compassionate about it. Vault, this is an interesting one. It's about not telling people information that was given to you that you're not really supposed to share. So if I tell you something in secret and then you tell, whoever over there, that would make me not trust you, but that would make that person also not trust you, because they know, they can kind of get the vibe that you really weren't supposed to tell them that, and that they probably shouldn't tell you anything that they don't want you to share either. So that's what Vault is. Integrity is about choosing courage over comfort. Obviously, as Greens, this is important to all of us, because comfort is staying within the confines of the two-party system and, closing your eyes, la, 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 and pretending that you can be a good person and still vote blue, which you totally can't. We know that. I mean, you know what I'm getting at. Like, there are people who in their personal lives are good people, but they're not doing a good thing by doing that. We know that. And so, but it takes courage to go green. It really does. We all have faced it. We've all had to deal with voter shaming. So we know, Greens are people of integrity. We know that we need to do this. And so it's just about, stepping into this and remembering this is a key part of trust. Non-judgment. So that's when I say what I need, you say what you need, we figure it out. If that doesn't necessarily mean you can give me what I need, but at least you can tell me that right at the starting gate, and we can figure it out, and we don't have to kind of be at each other's throats over it. And then the last one is generosity. And this specifically refers to, I want you to understand this, it refers to the generosity around the intentions of others. So you want to, sometimes we all make interpretations based on what people have said or what they've done. In order to trust each other, you have to trust each other that if I'm having a bad day, I step in dog poop or whatever, I come in and I'm in a bad mood, and you ask me, do I want a cup of tea? And I tell you to go away. That it's not that I hate you, it's that I'm in a bad mood. And it has nothing to do with you or whatever it is. It's just about being generous in terms of acknowledging that, life is complicated, things come up. It's not necessarily that the person who you're dealing with is a bad person or doesn't like you, etc. There's sometimes just things going on that we don't know about. And so that's what generosity is about, is just kind of that understanding and awareness. So let's look at how we build trust. I told you I would give you some examples of small and empowering tasks in order to build trust with the new activist. These are just really basic examples. You could have them go tabling with you. You could have them put up posters. One thing that I used to do as an activist in the UK is if you print out 2 large posters and then you kind of staple one side, you flip them over a lamppost, you staple the other side, staple them right at the margins of the lamppost, and then it just holds to the lamppost. It's quite cool. But I'm digressing. So, you know, you could have them promote an event. You could have them organize an event. That's a little bit of a further step. You could have them do small specialized tasks. If they're good at something, maybe graphic design or, you know, whatever it is, signature collecting, research, facilitating a meeting, whatever it is. It's just, you know, start with a little small thing and then build your way up to the point where they've actually taken on more self-directed leadership and responsibility and are comfortable with that and are comfortable with you and you're comfortable with them. It's just a really good way to get people involved rather than like, what do you do with the Green Party? Oh, I just sit in the back and attend their meetings, but I never actually do anything with them. We got a lot of people around who are kind of at the edges and don't really know how to get involved, and we desperately need them involved. So this is kind of starting gate stuff, see how they do, and then you can kind of integrate them more into your local or whichever structure is available. So just to recap on that, the right people will bring a blend of trust, or, you know, not trust right out the starting gate, confidence, trust which can be built, skills, time, and motivation. That being said, we can't really be choosy with our activists, so instead we need to tailor the roles that we propose for them based on our perception of how they're doing on those 4 areas. And as I said before, trust's something that you build over time. So find those small tasks, delegate those small tasks. That's a process of building trust, confidence, understanding, and it also builds skill. People can end up being really good at something that they didn't know that they were good at, or they can learn to be, or etc. And so we, the Green Party, we're very good at bringing people up the chain. That is to say, someone who starts out being active in their local is very quickly going to find themselves being, you know, brought to state level, even to national level sometimes. You know, look at me, I'm now here in Massachusetts. I don't know how this happened. I joined the Green Party 2 years ago. I personally feel like I just got sucked right up the chain, and it's been really exciting and very flattering and wonderful, and I've really enjoyed it. And so hopefully that's something that we can replicate. It's just that very first step that we need to work on. And so we also need to work on the handoff so that as people kind of take on more, that they can pass other things on, that there's more people to come in. A lot of this comes down to we just need more people, hence the focus on talent scouting. Project management. This is important. There is a tendency, especially by people who've kind of been in a corporate environment, you kind of just want to set up these projects. There's a lot that the Green Party needs done. There's a lot that inspires us. There's a lot that we kind of look at it and go, yeah, this is a serious issue in a serious area, and I really want to take this on. Someone's got to do it. And so the tendency then is to start on a project and then find people to help. That only really works in a corporate salary-based organization, because what you would do then is you figure out what the skills and interests are. You then hire someone who matches those skills and interests. You bring them in, and hopefully they excel because they've got those skills and interests. But in the context of a volunteer organization, we can't really choose which skills and interests are available to us because we've got the volunteers we've got. And the defining factor is whether they actually want to dedicate their time to the Green Party. So we have to do this the other way around. That means we start by people being brought into the organization. Then we look at the skills and interests of the people we've already got. And based on that, we figure out a project that's helpful and effective and rewarding for everybody who's involved in it. So it's basically just to, reverse the system as you see here. Start with the people, figure out the project based on the people. If you figure out a project and then hand it off to people who have no buy-in and no particular interest in it, that project will fail. Those people probably won't get back to you. They'll probably stop being green activists. It'll be kind of depressing for everyone. Your project won't get done. I don't recommend that at all. Instead, we want to focus on the things that we have people standing by ready to work on and make sure that everybody is feeling ownership and that they're happy with the work that they're doing. It's really critical to making sure that we optimize the work that we do. So thoughts about that. Basically, I mean, I've basically summarized all of it, but the only other thing to take note of is that this does mean that our projects will be somewhat piecemeal. It means that it's not going to be as kind of fleshed out as it would be in a corporate environment. And honestly, that's okay. If you compare that problem of things being a little bit piecemeal to the problem of work just not getting done and good activists being lost to the organization because they burnt out, it's really it's night and day. You can't really compare it. I'm a strong proponent of the volunteer-run organization model, where we start our building block is on volunteer motivation and commitment, and then we build from there. So again, I'm just going to read this slide out because it is so important to understand. Tasks and projects are only empowering if they correspond to individual interests and skills. So work with your potential activists to find something which feels exciting and attainable to them. And the more you personalize this process, the better the new activist will feel about their contribution. The better that they feel about their contribution, the more likely they will come back, they will take on more, they will help you out more. This also, by the way, applies to you and the work that you are currently doing. You will deliver better work and you will have more fun doing it if you pick things that are empowering. Now, obviously, someone's got to take the minutes. There's always grunt work. There's always frustrating things that need to get done. But let's try and balance that, meter it out, make sure everyone's doing a little rather than that one or two people are picking up all of it. So that's just a conscious thing that each of us should think about as well. So let's move on to mentoring here. When we talk about talent scouting, it's more than just finding someone and giving them the work, finding the work that they can do, and then just kind of letting them at it. They're going to need to have a go-to person or people who can help them as they're learning the ropes, as they're building confidence, as you're building trust in each other. So you can choose, do you want to mentor the recruits yourself? Not everybody wants to. That's okay. But you should kind of set them up with a buddy or a mentor if you're not planning on actually doing that yourself. Some people are more inclined that way than others. So it's just another thing to think about. You want to think about sort of what the new person's interests are, what their skills are, what the person who mentors them in, their skills are. So if you've got like a really good IT person, you might not want to have a person mentoring them who really doesn't do IT at all, but it might be okay. It depends on what kind of support they actually need. And then of course, take into consideration how much time you actually have. But remember that if you're mentoring someone for 2 hours a week and they're taking 6 hours a week off of your plate, then you're gaining 4 hours a week. So that's already worth it. So just things like that. Mentoring can mean anything, being available when they need you, scheduling a regular call if you want, not necessarily, just checking in, just being someone who they can rely on when anything comes up. It can help to be explicit, to set something up to say, okay, well, I'm planning on mentoring you. You don't always have to do that. Just make sure that the new person has some kind of structure supporting them. Now, other than mentoring or beyond mentoring, we also need to just kind of be supportive of each other. And I want each of you to think about, if every green activist has a couple of sort of buddies who you can call on when there's a crisis, when you need support, when you need to brainstorm something, and we should all do that for each other. So think about, who are your supportive greens right now? If you look around the room that you're in, can you identify a couple of people who are really people who you would go to in a crisis? And are they people who you would support in a crisis as well? Is it a two-way street? Are there other people you're supporting or mentoring? What does your network actually look like? Do you need to strengthen it? Do you need to help more people? Do you need more people helping you? This is a good time to think about that. If you don't have anyone coming to mind, I'm so sorry. I really hope each of you does have people coming to mind, but just in case you're not, look around the room right now, see if you can make eye contact with someone, have a chat with them, and you can always shoot me an email as well. I know I'm not physically there to talk to you guys this weekend, which is a bummer, but yeah, hopefully you can find a way to get the help that you need, and the support that you need. And yeah, shoot me an email if you need to talk. I'm always here, even if I'm on the other side of the country. So coming back to overcommitment, what tends to happen is it's like this. You start with a certain amount of availability, energy, bandwidth, and so you take on some tasks. So if you say, like, I've got 5 hours a week, most of us give more than 5 hours a week. That doesn't necessarily mean we should be, or that there's any shame in giving less than that, or whatever it is. But that's just kind of the reality of it. So people take on tasks based on how much time they have capacity for. Then life gets in the way. Other things show up. Your bandwidth sometimes goes down. Things get in the, things grow up, show up, and your bandwidth decreases. You still have the same workload. That's not great. And other greens, this happens to them too. So they get overwhelmed, they burn out, you find yourself picking up the slack for their work, whether you actually have capacity for it or not. And now, of course, you have too much on your plate. So you fall behind, you have no buffer to catch up. You end up exhausted, you end up resentful, you end up ashamed to have dropped the ball, and boom, you burn out. And then, of course, that moves up to level 3 for everyone around you. They start to burn out, and it's a domino line. So we have to really prioritize not overcommitting because we're losing people that way. And this is where I propose shock absorption is the concept of nurturance and trust. So here are some very concrete examples of that. You can take on fewer tasks than you think you're capable of right at the start. I recommend this. To those of you who have the luxury of being at the stage where you're taking on fewer tasks, i.e. the newer people, and we're so glad you're here. So yeah, just kind of pick one thing, do the one thing for a little while. Don't start by taking on 15 things. It's gonna make you really tired and really overwhelmed. And I know some of you are like, well, thanks for telling me that now. It's too late. But if you, those of you who have too much, think about talent scouting a person or two and give them some of your tasks. It will get better. I promise it will get better. If you are already burning out, talk to someone. We need to be talking to each other. We need to be honest with each other. This is hard work that we do, and it's important. So yeah, talk to your people. This is the second point. If you need to offload anything, allow whoever takes on the tasks, to take full ownership of them and complete them in a way that feels better to them. If you are giving someone else a task that you previously committed to do and can no longer do it, you are handing off ownership to the new person doing it. Do not expect them to do it exactly the way you would have done it. That will piss them off. That will make them feel invalid. That will make them not trust you. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Let them do it their own way, and they might come up with something wonderful. You don't know. And then, be prepared to let lower priority tasks go. We got to do this. Not everything is high priority. Some things are urgent, but they're not important. Like, let's go a little easy on ourselves. We're doing hard work. And then, be careful, be comfortable in your use of no. Take no for an answer. Please take no for an answer, because if someone tells you no and you don't take no for an answer, they're still just not going to do the work. And then it's just not going to show up on your desk. And if you even have a desk. So don't put yourself through that. If they say they can't do it, listen to them, give them the option. Putting everything on your own shoulders, by the way, that might seem like you're being supportive. It's not actually nurturance culture. It's you matter too, and it leads to distrust between you and others. It leads to more burnout because you're going to burn out. It's just not good. Make sure you're sharing and talking to each other and promoting each other's well-being as well as your own. In conclusion, everyone should be talent scouting because that will keep us going for a very long time and keep us energized and oxygenated. There's an excessive focus on drawing people deeper and deeper into our structures. We need to start by prioritizing the very first step in because the rest of it is flowing. We just need to get more people in right in the door. and then keep it moving from there. We need to prioritize finding, supporting new activists in our locals. State and national level talent scouting kind of keeps us insular. We tend to draw from our own ranks. Each of us is already doing a lot. So yeah, basically just keep trying to find people in your local areas. That'll make all the difference. Building our projects around activist skills and interests, not building our activist skills around our projects. That's crucial for retention and morale. We choose our projects based on the people available to do them. We don't choose our people based on the projects that we need done. We can't do that. We don't have that luxury. So remember, recruit people who have skills, who have motivation, who have time, and focus on building trust between you and them and building their confidence. And lastly, take care of your people once you've recruited them, or find someone else who's prepared to do it. So that's what I got for you today. That puts us at a 35-minute time for what was a 45-minute slot. So you now have 10 minutes where you could either open up a brief stack, or you can network across the room. If you choose to do the latter, veteran greens, you know who you are. Consider scanning the crowd for a face you don't recognize. Once you've spotted that person, go and have a chat with them. See what they're interested in, see what they're passionate about, see if they would be interested and willing to get involved with the Green Party at a deeper level. And yeah, I leave it up to you now. And thank you for your time. I hope this brought you some value. I miss you all. I hope to see you all soon. Ciao.